Welcome back. In this video and in the following videos, we are going to start PHP MySQL mini series. So in this series, we are going to look at the typical backend using PHP and MySQL database. Okay. So in the previous series, we have been looking at PHP fundamentals. So in that series, it has 10 episodes only, and what you have been looking at is the PHP fundamentals, the syntax, getting used to doing some syntax of different things, and we looked at all those fundamentals. So it is high time we push it one more level and we look at the database. So we look at the PHP and then we look at the database and how they work together to build real applications. Okay, so in this series we are going to focus on that. We are going to look at MySQL, we are going to look at the backend. So in this first episode, I'm just going to explain what is MySQL database and what is PHP MyAdmin. Okay, so after explaining those ones, it will mark our first episode, and then the preceding episodes we are going to continue and look at things like CRUD, where we create, edit, update, read and delete stuff and more nice things. And then at the end of the mini series, we are going to create a small e-commerce project. Okay, so we'll do one project we're going to be using during the series, but then we are going to build an entire project of e-commerce at the end of this mini series. So welcome back, and if you have not watched the previous series for PHP fundamentals, please, the link is in the description. So please make sure you first watch that series before you start on to this one. It is very important that I mention that one, because we are going to be using all those concepts that we learned during PHP fundamentals, and we are going to be using them into this series. So it is good that you are on the same page before you enter this PHP MySQL. Okay, thank you so much. Let's dive in. So the first thing is we are going to look at what is MySQL, or what is MySQL. Okay, so MySQL is an open source relational database management system used in web development, particularly in PHP development. So MySQL is used in very many other places, but it has a really good connection with PHP development. So 90% or 95%, you are going to find most of these PHP web apps, they are all using MySQL at the back end. Okay, and there is no any backend language that does not use a database. At least one thing that is in common in all backend is that you have to have a database. Okay, so when you are just telling someone that I do backend, they will ask you the language you are doing plus a database. So PHP normally moves with MySQL. Okay, so MySQL is just a relational database, and we are going to see what is the database in a minute. But it provides a secure, reliable, and a scalable way to store and manage data. And that is the main function of any database. The main purpose of a database is to store and manage data. As simple as that. MySQL is a key component in the LAMP stack. So those ones, if you have watched the mini series, then at least you know what is LAMP stack. But LAMP stack is Linux, Apache, MySQL or MariaDB, and PHP. So this database, they normally relate it to as MariaDB. We are going to see it in the future. But basically in the LAMP stack, The Linux is the operating system, Apache is the server, and then MySQL is the database that we are using, and PHP is the language that is doing all the magic. Okay, so that is MySQL in short. But let's see what is the structure of MySQL. So MySQL structure is based on a set of tables that are used to store and manage data. Okay, so we had the in a second ago that MySQL is a relational database. Okay, MySQL is a relational database, and relational databases are based on tables to store data. They store data in tables, and that is the most common question they might ask you. All relational databases, they use tables to store their data. So each table is made up of a set of columns and rows. Okay, so if you are familiar with a table in Microsoft Excel or Microsoft Word, you know that the table is always made up of columns and rows. Okay, and in each column represents a field and each row represents a record. Okay, so as I said, MySQL is a relational database, which means that it uses relationships between tables to store and manage data. So it, as you are keeping your data in one or the other, depending on the project you are doing, this data is always related. Okay, the data is always related, and using the relationship, MySQL can store this data in different tables and then keep on communicating between these tables using relationships. So let's look at example of some tables. So assume you have a students table to store simply a list of students. You can imagine you have a list of students and you want to keep, for instance, their ID, student name, student age, and maybe the course. And then down we also have another table for courses table. So in the courses table, we are storing the ID, course name, course code, and course duration. So this is something you could even do in Excel, something you could do in Microsoft Word, and you have seen many people doing it. Simply, you find a school is having students, and they simply go on the paper, or they just go in a in a book. They simply draw a table of students and then also draw a table of courses. Okay, then they put the student name, student age, student course, and even more information about the student. Okay, so in this case, I only limited this data to that. It could go even more columns, but I consider those few ones for purposes of presenting here the case. So as you can clearly see, we have two tables, and what they have some columns. For instance, in this table, it has ID column, it has student name column, it has student age column, and course ID column. Okay, so it has 4 columns, and these columns, each of these are having the header. Like student name is a column, and we said a column represents a field. So you can see student name. So student name is a field, student age is a field, course ID is a field. Okay, now if you go to this second table, courses table, it has also 4 fields: the course name, course code, and course duration. And these course name, course code, and course duration, you can see they are columns, and those columns are the ones we call fields. Okay, it is going to be very important to know that when we are doing this whole MySQL, because we'll be knowing where do we want to put the name, which column should we put the name of the course, and we'll be saying it is the course name column. Okay, that is great. Now if you see, we also have these rows. So each of these tables are having rows. Each of them are having 3 rows, and each row, as you can see here, I picked one row from John Doe. This one which is saying ID 1, John Doe, age 23, and the course ID 3. So this one is a record, and you can clearly see it is a row. And we said each row represents a record in a database. Okay, so this group of tables, when we put them together, they form a database, and that database is having these tables, and these tables are the ones that are having the fields and records. So now you are seeing how the picture starts now coming together. So relationship between these tables, so you can see that if you look at these tables, the first table, students table, has one column which says course ID. So this course ID is keeping an ID of the course this person is doing. It's not keeping the course name or course what, is only keeping the course ID, which means it is linking this students table. Course ID is linking it to the courses table. So like for instance, ID 3 in the courses table is Bachelor's in Business Admin, and has all these details, the course code and the course duration. So instead of keeping all this data into this table, we just separated into a different table, and we linked this table, courses table, to the students table using the ID. Which means that these tables are related, that each student can have a course, or a course can belong to many students. Okay, we have only a few students here, but you could have many students belonging to the same course. Okay, so that is very amazing. Starting to see that this is the kind of relationship that we are going to be talking about as we move into this series. So when they talk about that MySQL is a relational database, they mean that it keeps tables, and some of these tables are related to other tables. So as you can see clearly, the students table is related to the courses table using a course ID that is relating that each of the student has a particular course, and then we can come and check that course ID and we see which course it was. So in the future, we're going to be seeing how we develop these relationships in details. At this point, I will just running it through you and introducing it to you what a relationship can look like. But in the future, we're going to have a separate videos talking about identifying relationships and doing all those things. So let's look at MySQL commands. Okay, so MySQL, the basic syntax of MySQL command is based on the set of SQL, and SQL is structured query language. We are not going to go so deep into SQL, but most of the MySQL commands are based on SQL. Okay, they are based on SQL, and SQL is a query language. As you can hear, it is a language that is used to ask or to query the database upon different things like creating data, reading data, updating data, and even deleting data. And those are the major commands that MySQL is going to be helping us to do. And for sure, that is all what backend is all about. Backend is all about creating new data, reading that data, updating the data, and deleting the data. That's what the database, what the backend is always all about. And this is achieved by using MySQL, and it does few like about 5 commands we are going to see. but one of them is the create. So MySQL has capability to create new databases, new tables, and even other data objects, database objects. And this is one of its major command, the create command. We are going to see it in just in a second. So another one is select command, and the select command is used to retrieve data from one or more tables. Another one is insert, and insert is used to insert new data into a table. Another one is update. Update is used to update existing data in a table. And then delete is used to delete data from a table. So you can see they are understandable. If you look at these queries, they are really in English. Create, it creates a new database or new tables. This is very much understandable. And then selecting is just simply retrieving data or selecting data from the database. Inserting is adding new data. Updating and delete. They are so much in English that you can easily understand what they do by reading at their names. Now, we are going to look at something called PHP MyAdmin before we jump into creating, deleting data, and inserting data. We are going to look at something called PHP MyAdmin. So now PHP MyAdmin is an open source web-based application for managing MySQL databases. So MySQL, to those ones who know maybe GitHub, I can give an example. So we all know GitHub keeps our repos, but then how we interact with GitHub, we can use Git, the Git commands, or we could use a Git desktop, and then that Git desktop gives you access to your repos. So it's the same thing as PHP MyAdmin. So PHP MyAdmin is an interface that gives us easy to manage the databases we are creating. So we'll be creating databases, we'll be creating tables. So PHP MyAdmin gives us a visually appealing UI that we can easily create, manage data within a very nice looking UI. Okay. So PHP MyAdmin allows developers to easily manage the MySQL databases without having to write complex SQL queries. Okay, so you could write the SQL queries to interact with the database, but the most important one is the PHP MyAdmin helps us interact and do many things. Okay. So I'm just going to show you around how PHP MyAdmin looks like before we jump in to do our CRUD operations. And after showing you, it will just mark the end of this episode, and then we'll continue in other episodes. So let's just look at what PHP MyAdmin looks like and how do we access PHP MyAdmin so that we start working with MySQL. So if you remember at the beginning of the PHP fundamental series, we installed XAMPP. Okay, and we said when you install XAMPP, it installs all the things that you need to develop to set up PHP server and PHP development environment. So when you install XAMPP, to those ones who installed XAMPP, it came with many things. And if I'm to go on my desktop, let me actually go to my local disk C. If you installed XAMPP in the previous video, you must be having this XAMPP folder in your local disk C. If you go to your local disk C, you must see a folder called XAMPP. And when you open XAMPP, it has all these weird files, a lot of files that it has. Okay, and if you remember, we also did start the services. In one of those services we started MySQL and Apache. Okay, we started those servers, and there is no any other further software you need to install. If you successfully installed XAMPP and it gave you these htdocs, if you have these htdocs, or if you can see these htdocs, then you are good to go, because when you open the browser and then you type in localhost, okay, if you type in localhost, then it should point to this server here. When you type in localhost, localhost, by the way, it is pointing to the server, which is actually this folder that a XAMPP is providing. Now, when you just go to the browser and you simply type in just localhost like that, you will see that it is going to point to the htdocs folder. Okay, so if you have that and if it is working, you are simply good to go. Okay, if you see something like the target machine has refused to do something, an error like that, just know that your XAMPP, you need to look for XAMPP control panel. Okay, in fact, simply go to this XAMPP folder, just start the service, come here on this XAMPP control.exe. in this one, double click it, and then after double clicking it, it is going to open the control panel. Okay, it's going to open the control panel, and then if you have these services like MySQL and Apache not started, simply start them and actually install them to keep on running. Okay, that is the only step you need, and there is no any other further software we need to install for us to continue. Okay, having said that, let's actually continue. So if you come onto the browser and you type in the browser, you type in localhost, it is going to point to this localhost folder, or the htdocs folder, and you can see it is even showing us the Apache server that is we are running here. It is showing us all these nice things and even the port. So those ones who are having the Apache not running, if you can't access your localhost, open your control panel and you will see that you have X on this side. Click on that X and install Apache. Click on also X, install MySQL, and also on the actions here, it will be saying start. Simply start the services and you'll be so much good to go. Okay, at that point, even if you close the panel, you are good to go. Okay, so next we are into this one, and those ones who watched the PHP fundamentals, you are familiar with this folder. We were working in this folder, the localhost folder. Now I'm not going to open any projects right now here. I will just simply testing that you should be putting localhost and it takes you here. And if it is taking you to something like dashboard or something like that, simply it is okay. If it is taking you to a dashboard, simply go back to your htdocs and delete that dashboard folder, and it will be bringing you all these folders that are here. So next, to access phpMyAdmin, simply go on this localhost here, put a slash, and then write in small cases phpMyAdmin, just like that. Write out that word, so write localhost stroke phpMyAdmin and press enter. Okay, press enter and wait. it is going to load for us the PHP MyAdmin. So if it is your first time interacting with the PHP MyAdmin, let me take this opportunity to take you through. Okay, so this is how the PHP MyAdmin looks like. Okay, I know if you are expecting like a very fancy stuff, or if you're expecting a very bad stuff, I don't know if it is too good or if it is not good enough, but this is how the PHP MyAdmin, you can see it is here written here, PHP MyAdmin. Okay, now in your case, you're not going to look at all these other things that you are seeing on mine. So all these things you are seeing here on the left listed here with this symbol of a database, all these ones are my databases. They are my databases that I've been creating over time doing different projects. Okay, so don't worry about having one. At least you'll be having something like test or any. If you don't have any so far, it is okay, but you can see this new is always on the top. So you are seeing this stuff which is having new. Okay, and also you are seeing all these other stuff here. We don't need to dive into all these ones. You don't need to dive onto all these ones. You don't have to do that. Okay, the only thing right now, I want you to get familiar on how the interface looks like. And the most important thing that we come to do in the PHP MyAdmin is only one. We come to the PHP MyAdmin to create new tables, and in those tables we create we come to create new databases, and then in those databases we add tables. That is the most important thing we want from PHP MyAdmin, to create a database, and in that database we populate it with tables to keep our data, and then later on we'll be retrieving that data. That is the most important thing that we need. Okay, another thing that you have to be is that you can also export and import database. If you already have the data from previous project, you can import it into this one, or you can export one of your databases into SQL and you can send it to someone, or you can use it in some other places. Now, I'm not going to move into all these ones. This is to overwhelm you for nothing. The most only thing you need to know is that you can create a database by clicking on this database, or by clicking on this new. If you click on this new, it will take you to this where you can create a database. Okay, so you can create a database here, and we're just going to do it in the next video. Right now I'm showing you how the interface looks like. You can simply create a database here right now by putting a name here and clicking create. Another thing, you can create SQL commands. You can also create a database using SQL queries, as we looked earlier. But the reason we're not going to be using so much SQL queries, I'm just going to teach you how to use this here. The UI, you can simply put your name and click create, or you could just go to SQL here and, for instance, run the create command for SQL to create a database. So thank you so much. We are going to end this episode here, and I'm just going to see you in the next one.